lover. This is possible in the worship of Radha and Krishna. But no one, especially the impersonalists, can understand Radha Krishna. The impersonalists have no idea. They cannot even conceive that God has form. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that not only does God have form, but God has sex life also. This is the highest contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One can serve the Supreme Lord in various relationships, but in the material world, those relationships exist only as perverted reflections. What is our engagement in relationship to the material world? What are our ideas of society and friendship and love? They are all based on the material conception of life. In our society, someone is engaged as father or a mother to a son, and others are engaged as husband and wife, lover and beloved. There are other rasas or relationships also, such as to be engaged with another as an enemy. There are 12 different relationships, out of which 5 are predominant. The other 7 are indirect relationships, such as, for example, to be someone's enemy. There is usually a relationship between enemies, even between a murderer and the one he or she murders. As far as our relationship with Krishna is concerned, however, even if one establishes a relationship as Krishna's enemy, then one's life is successful. Last year, one of my students in Santiago, Chile, he brought up this point. He said, you know what? I think in my next life, I want to be a demon so that Krishna kills me and I get liberated. So I said, good luck trying to achieve that status. To be that kind of demon, you've got to be top-notch personality. No offense, my friend, but I don't think you're going to qualify to be that kind of a demon that Krishna kills. Better to be Krishna's humble devotee. Who agrees? Yes. Besides, the demon doesn't get the same benefit that the devotee does. The devotee gets much, much better situation. Therefore, when one engages his or her senses with Krishna, a relationship can be established in one of 12 different varieties, of which 5 varieties are direct and 7 are indirect. Next part. Krishna is equal to both devotees and demons. You're doing pretty good. I'm glad. Only, I think, 2 people left so far. So I told you you were advanced. I told you so. Thank you for hanging in there. When Krishna appeared in the arena of Kamsa, there were many big wrestlers prepared to kill Krishna. In fact, Krishna was invited there to be killed. Krishna's enemy, Kamsa, thought, soon Krishna and Balaram will come. We have tried for 16 years to kill them, but that boy Krishna could not be killed. But now I have invited Krishna as a guest, and when Krishna arrives, Krishna will fight with these wrestlers, and they will kill Krishna. The demoniac or atheistic people are always thinking of Krishna or God in terms of killing him. Therefore, they present their theories that God is dead. They think that if God becomes dead, then they will be free to act however they please. But as far as their actual activities are concerned, God may be dead or alive, but God's agent, the material energy, is so strong that no one can freely do any wrong. As soon as anyone does something wrong, there is immediate punishment. It does not require the presence of God. God may be dead or alive, but the material energy is sufficient to punish anyone who violates the material laws, even to the slightest degree. God has set these conditions, but foolish people do not understand. Lord Chaitanya, however, speaks of favorably engaging all the senses in the service of Krishna in pure devotional life. One should favorably engage one's senses and should do whatever Krishna wants. Yet even if one engages one's senses against the will of Krishna, but still thinks of Krishna, that is also advantageous. The demon Putana, for example, thought of killing Krishna. This story of Putana is very dear to me because it was the story of Putana that convinced me to join Prabhupada's movement. So I have great affection for that story of Putana. For example, just as the occupation of godly persons is to serve God, so the demons and atheists are always prepared to kill God. Putana thought, I shall kill Krishna. Krishna is only a child. This is another mistake of the demoniac. They think Krishna or God to be an ordinary child or man. So in this way, Putana was thinking, let me smear my breast with poison, and when the child goes to suck the milk, Krishna will die. As we study this, we see that she approached Krishna as Krishna's enemy, and yet Krishna accepted her as a friend because Krishna is so merciful. Krishna did not take the demoniac portion of her mentality, but Krishna accepted her. Every living entity is conditioned, but Krishna is not. A doctor or psychiatrist treats madmen, but he does not become mad. Sometimes a patient may become angry with the doctor or call him ill names, but the doctor is sober and simply tries to treat the patient. I personally saw that one time, probably 1976. I had to get a boil lanced. I had to go to the doctor. So while I was waiting, a doctor was taking care of this lady. She had these big bruises on her head. And the doctor was trying to treat her, and she kept hitting him. So what Prabhupada writes here is, I have experience. I can still remember that. The lady was, as he was trying to treat her. Similarly, if someone regards Krishna as one's enemy, Krishna does not become an enemy. Putana came to poison Krishna, but Krishna took it otherwise. Krishna thought, I have sucked her breast milk, therefore she has become my mother. Krishna treated Putana as his mother, and therefore she became liberated to the same position as Krishna's real mother, Yashoda. The conclusion is that the highest perfection is to establish a favorable relationship with Krishna. But even if one engages unfavorably, Krishna is so merciful that Krishna at least gives one salvation. All the enemies killed by Krishna were immediately liberated. Two classes of men may merge into the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Those who are intentionally aspiring to merge into the impersonal Brahmajyoti may enter, and those who are enemies of Krishna and are killed by Krishna may also do so. Therefore the devotee concludes, why should I accept a condition that is offered even to God's enemies? Okay, we just got 3 more. Can you hang in there for 3 more? Good. I was told that tonight's feast is outstanding, so it's worth waiting. Okay, so this one is called Use the Senses for Krishna's Sense Action. Okay. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends pure devotional service. There should be no desire to fulfill one's own material desires. There should be no attempt to understand Krishna by experimental philosophy, and there should be no fruitive activities to derive material benefits from Krishna. The only desire should be to serve Krishna favorably, as Krishna desires. If Krishna wants something, then we should do it. Now this next thing Prabhupada says is so, I love this. Suppose, now this is Prabhupada, suppose I were to ask a disciple, my dear student, please give me a glass of water. It is then the disciple's duty to give me a glass of water. But if the disciple thinks, oh, Prabhupada wants a glass of water, but why not give him something better? Why not a glass of hot milk? That is not service. It in the disciple's consideration, hot milk is very palatable and is better than water. Yet, because I have asked for water, the disciple has to give me water, not milk. That is favorable service. One has to understand what Krishna wants. When there is that intimate relationship, then one can serve Krishna most favorably. And as long as there is not that intimate relationship, one must take information of what Krishna wants through the transparent medium of the spiritual master. So that's twice in this article that Prabhupada has mentioned that point. We don't know how to satisfy Krishna other than what Prabhupada instructs us. That's why we study his books. That's why we study his instructions and we follow his example. Because we want to satisfy Krishna. We want to love Krishna. We want to please Krishna. But as Prabhupada has pointed out, you don't know that. You have to go through the transparent via medium, the spiritual master. And here he is in this temple. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Prabhupada continues, a Vaishnava never thinks that he or she has a direct relationship with Krishna. Lord Chaitanya says, I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, 100 times the servant of Krishna. We have to agree to become the servant of the servant of the servant. And my friends, from practical experience, that's hard. It is hard to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. But that's the process. This is the process of disciplic succession. And if one wants real transcendental love of God, then one has to adopt this process. Because people do not accept this process, they do not develop real love of God. They speak of God, but actually they do not love God. Because there is no cultivation of pure devotional service, they love dog. We may say love of God, but unless we adopt this principle, then we will have to love God, dog, not God. That is the mistake. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that if one really wants to love of God, then one has to follow the process of pure devotional service. It is not that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking out of his own mental concoction. Sri Krishna Chaitanya's statements are confirmed in the Vedic scriptures, such as the Narada Pantaratra and Srimad Bhagavatam. These two books and the Bhagavad Gita are very authentic scriptures meant for devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes from a verse in the Narada Pantaratra. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. This is the definition of pure devotional service. Please repeat, Rishikena. Rishikesha Sevanam. Rishikena means by one's senses. We have to engage our senses. It is not that we engage only our minds. If someone says, I am always thinking of Krishna, that is not pure devotional service. Meditation is thinking, but no one thinks of Krishna. They think of void or something impersonal. If someone is thinking of Krishna or Narayan or Vishnu, as prescribed in the Vedic scriptures, that is real yoga. Yoga meditation means to focus one's mind upon the Supersoul. The Supersoul is representation of Krishna in the four-armed form, four-handed Narayan. Even Patanjali, an authority on the yoga system, prescribes meditation on Vishnu. But just as people are manufacturing bogus religious processes, the so-called yogis of today have manufactured their own way of thinking of something void. But the Narada Pancharatra says, please repeat, Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam. One must engage not only the mind, but one's senses. Engage the senses in the service of the master of these senses. These three Sanskrit words are significant. Rishikesha, please repeat, means the Lord of the senses. So Bhakti Yoga means to serve with the senses the Lord of the senses. The Lord of the senses is Krishna. We should always remember that we have our senses. So far for me in this essay, Prabhupada has given us a summary, a succinct explanation of what is Krishna consciousness. This next part, I love this next part. We should always remember that we have our senses because we wanted to enjoy this material world. And therefore the Lord has given us a particular set of senses for our enjoyment. The hog has a particular type of body and senses because it wanted to enjoy eating stool. Similarly, a man has a particular type of body and senses because he wanted to enjoy something else. We have a particular set of conditioned senses with which to enjoy this material world. And this is what we have to purify. Our senses are original, but now they are covered by material desires. We have to cure ourselves and become free from such desires. When one's senses are no longer inclined toward material sense gratification, one's status is called pure devotion. From this verse of the Narada Pancharatra, we can understand that the spirit soul has original senses. However small a body it may have entered, the spirit soul is not impersonal. It has senses. Perhaps one may find a bug in one's book. It is so small, smaller than a pinpoint, but still it moves. It has all the senses. Small bacteria also move, and they have their senses. Originally, all living entities have senses. It is not that the senses have developed under certain material conditions. The atheistic theory is that under material conditions, we have developed senses. That in the spiritual condition, there are no senses, and that we are impersonal. By logic and reason, however, that cannot be so. A minute particle of spiritual force, even if it's smaller in size than an atom, has its senses. These senses, being covered by material elements, manifest themselves in a perverted way. We have to purify the senses, and when the senses are purified, we can engage them for the pleasure of the master of the senses. Everybody say, Rishikesha. So that is the meaning of master of the, what's that name? What's that name? You learned another name of God. Krishna is the master and proprietor of the senses. Therefore, because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, our senses are borrowed from Krishna. They are on rental. Wow. This article is just amazing. They are on rental. The best thing is to use the senses for Krishna's sense satisfaction and not for our own. This is the process of pure Krishna consciousness. This one is called, there is no ambition or motive in pure Krishna consciousness. Balaram, would you give me permission to go over a little? I want to be able to finish. Can I get a little leeway in the time? I can go over a little, not too much. We only have 2 more sections. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'll give you all a big blessing at the end. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Chaitanya gives an example of pure devotion. It is said in Bhagavatam that Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. Therefore, just as rivers flow and their natural tendency is to reach the sea, so as soon as one hears the glory of the Lord, one's soul is at once attracted toward the Supreme Lord. This is the beginning of pure devotional service. As soon as there is the chanting vibration, let's all do it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Immediately Krishna's paraphernalia, Krishna's name, Krishna's fame, Krishna's abode, Krishna's associates, everything, all of a sudden become manifested within because Krishna is present. This is the beginning of one's Krishna consciousness. To remember right reference to a context means that as soon as one hears a code word, one at once remembers all the information behind that code. Similarly, when our minds are attracted to Krishna and everything about Krishna, simply by hearing a little glorification of Krishna's qualities, that is the beginning of pure Krishna consciousness. Then there is no more gati, or movement of the mind. It was just that way with the gopis. As soon as they heard the sound of Krishna's flute, they gave up everything. Some of them were lying down, some were working in their family affairs, some were taking care of their children, and as soon as they heard Krishna's flute, they forgot everything and rushed to Krishna. Their husbands, brothers, fathers said, "Why are you going and leaving your duty?" But they did not care. They simply left. There is no impediment and no stumbling block in that merge of the mind with Krishna. This is the beginning of pure devotion. Everybody say, Purushottama. So Purushottama means Krishna. The word Purusha means enjoyer. The conditioned living entities are false enjoyers, imitation enjoyers here in this material world. All living entities are acting as Purushas. The more exact meaning of Purusha is male. The male is considered to be the enjoyer, and the female is considered to be enjoyed. In the material world, whether one has a male or a female body, everyone has the propensity to enjoy, and therefore everyone is called Purusha. But actually, the only Purusha is the Supreme Lord. We living entities are Krishna's energy, and Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. We are not Purusha. Energies are employed for enjoyment, and we are energies, instruments of the Supreme Person. Therefore, Purushottama. is the supreme transcendental person. When our pure devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is employed, there are no impediments or stumbling blocks. That is the symptom of pure Krishna consciousness. There is no ambition or motive in pure Krishna consciousness. Every other transcendental function or mode of worship is backed up by a motive. Someone wants salvation. Someone wants material prosperity. Someone wants to go to a higher planet. Someone wants to go to Krishna Loka. These ambitions should not be there. A pure devotee has no such ambitions. A pure devotee does not even desire to go to the supreme abode of Krishna. Of course, he or she goes, but one has no desire. He or she simply wants to engage oneself fully in Krishna's service. There are different kinds of salvation. There is Salokya liberation, to live on the same planet as the Supreme Lord. The residents of the Vaikuntha planets live on the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarshti liberation means to have almost the same opulence as Narayan. Everybody say. Narayan. The liberated individual soul can appear just like Narayan with 4 hands, the 4 emblems, almost the same body.